Mad Rap channel. You're with the voice of boxing, Colonel Bob Sheridan. Where are we right now?
Right now we're in Kevin Barry's gym. Kevin, of course, is a New Zealander with a great background with Joseph Parker and so many other champions that he's trained over the years, taken to the title, and Jeff Horn is working out here. So we're in Henderson, Nevada, which is just a suburb of Las Vegas.
So, obviously big fight, Jeff Horn, Terrence Crawford. How would you describe Jeff Horn's style, like the Hornet style?
Well, Jeff is a very aggressive fighter, and for this particular fight, aggressiveness is going to be very, very important. He's in fantastic, magnificent shape. In fact, maybe the supposed hand injury that Crawford had in pushing this fight back gave Jeff some great opportunity to spar more, and he's going to be in great shape, and he's going to need to be, because Crawford is one of the very best fighters in the world today, ranked with Gennady Golovkin and Vasily Lomachenko in the pound-for-pound categories all over the world. Jeff Horn, we don't know how good he is. We do know that he's very aggressive. He will not give up. If he gets knocked down, he gets up. If he gets hurt, he comes back, as he showed in the Pacquiao fight. He's got to keep pressure on Crawford. Crawford is coming up to 147, the welterweight division, for the first time. Jeff could probably fight at middleweight, and he might be a middleweight by fight time. So will Terrence Crawford's punches have the same power? Will Jeff's have more power? That's what this fight's all about.
What was Terrence fighting at before? Was he at 140 or?
He was a world champion at 135, which is lightweight. Then he went up to super lightweight or junior welterweight at 140, and he cleaned out that entire division. His last fight, he stopped his opponent and unified all the belts. So I mean, he's a super fighter, and has had no problem going from 135 to 140. But the next big jump is 140 to 147.
Do fighters struggle with that jump?
The great ones don't seem to. You know, I talked about Roberto Duran being the best ever at lightweight. When he moved up, he was still great, but he was never as great as he was as a lightweight. You know, he's a Hall of Fame fighter, and many people in the United States expect that Terrence Bud Crawford is the same caliber of fighter, and that he is a great defensive fighter in the line with Floyd Mayweather, but a great offensive fighter in line with Ray Leonard. So, you know, he's the full package.
You know, I know Terrence Crawford was sort of disappointed he didn't get the fight with Pacquiao. If that fight did go ahead, who do you see winning that fight?
Well, that's impossible to say. I mean, it's like the Crawford fight. You know, the fight has to happen. The same thing we know is that, you know, Manny's a legitimate heavier fighter, and would his punches have more power? The other factor is we get an aging Manny Pacquiao who, in spite of his greatness, is not as great as he was at one time. Just like Roberto Duran, as I mentioned, as he went up in weight and he added age, he was never as great as he was as a lightweight, although he was great. And I expect Crawford, you know, will be able to make the transition. If this is the fight, or is he going to struggle with a fighter that people in the United States don't know much about, in Jeff Horn?
You know, the fight with Pacquiao can be seen as the changing of the guards. And, you know, Jeff is now the new lion, the leader of the pack. And Terrence is the younger lion coming in, I guess. You know, Jeff is more polished at this weight class. He's more experienced, he's got the belt. Do you think he's going to try and impose his weight and try and get that psychological edge over Terrence, like immediately?
Well, that's what he's got to try and do.
Yeah.
And whether he can do it or not is the big question, because Crawford is that skilled. He is really an excellent supreme fighter, and how he performs at welterweight, if he's the fighter that everybody thinks he is, then he'll prevail. If there's any chink in his armor in terms of going up in weight or losing power or any of those sort of things, then Jeff Horn has an opportunity to, you know, do the job and win this fight. But in the United States, you know, Crawford's a prohibitive favorite because you know, the betting public wants, or rather the bookmakers here in Las Vegas want the betting public to bet on Jeff Horn. So that's why they're trying to encourage it. So they put the odds even maybe further than they should be. I think that if I were a bookmaker in this fight, I would make Crawford a slight favorite to win the fight,
Yeah.
but nowhere near as big of a favorite as he is. But remember, the whole American audience has been influenced by Teddy Atlas calling the fight in Brisbane, and then Stephen A. Smith in the studio at ESPN, who just butchered the fight, you know. So, you know, the American public doesn't know how good Jeff Horn is. And Horn is better than he looks. I told the guys at Top Rank that matchmakers a long time before, he moved on the world scene, that Horn was a world-class fighter, and they sort of didn't agree with me. They saw a couple of times him getting knocked out. Great fighters get up. One of the greatest heavyweights of all time came off the canvas 3 times to win fights. His name was Larry Holmes, and he was actually knocked out 3 times and came off the canvas. So, you know, those things happen.
What did you think of the outburst from Teddy Atlas? You know,
the what?
The outburst from Teddy Atlas at the end of that fight. I mean,
well,
did you think it was professional?
Well, first off, Teddy's not a professional announcer. Teddy's a fighter, and you know, he's done a good job, and that's Teddy. That's the way he is, and like I said, Teddy's a friend, so I don't want to criticize him. But the last thing I would have done as a broadcaster, when a kid has just won the biggest fight of his life, even if I disagreed, is say, I disagree that you won the fight, and then ask a question, because I don't think that I'm not going to say it wasn't professional, but it wasn't.
My last question is, if Jeff Horn pulls the victory off, if Jeff Horn wins, what does that mean? Like, is he?
Well, first off, this is professional boxing, so it means a ton of money for him in his next fight.
Yeah, but I mean, like in the boxing community. I mean,
the boxing community will become believers. You know, this fight stands to have a lot of close rounds, and if it goes to the scorecards, you know, with a lot of rounds, maybe 5 or 6 rounds that are close and could go one way or the other, then there could be controversy. And if that happens, maybe they'd fight again. I don't know.
Yeah. It's funny because if it's a close fight, then there's 2 controversial fights, you know, that Jeff has been in. So,
well, because of the style of his fighting, you know, he fights close, combative rounds. He'll when he stays in the guy's face, he's throwing all the time. And you know, professional boxing is the hurt business, and you know, Jeff has proven that he's stood up against every single opponent that he's had to face, and he's done a great job.
Fantastic. Thanks for your time, Bob.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Colonel. Thank you so much.
We're dropping to the all in now.